And I will invite our friends and allies who are here, please do record this, please do take video. We would love to get a copy of this and be able to put the whole thing out in full, so that way, if it does get cut from the news, everybody's remarks are still heard. So please be encouraged to record all of this in its entirety, and we will get started in 1 second here. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Eli Harrington, and I am a Tier 2 licensed sun-grown cannabis cultivator based in Irisburg, Vermont. Very proud to be here with a diverse group of licensees and advocates, and especially to be joined by some of our representatives who are here in the crowd and supporting us in the building today. We've brought this group here together to discuss a few different cannabis reforms. We know that we are a very new industry, but we have already hit some milestones, including with our excise tax, and are a huge part of this Vermont industry and economy. I'm not wearing this t-shirt by accident or to disrespect the State House, but to reflect that Vermont cannabis is, like Vermont maple, Vermont alcohol, a huge part of our state. So one thing that we are going to be talking about today is special event permits. We have heard from cultivators, we are feeling the squeeze, and we need to open up more markets within Vermont. We've got a vibrant tourism industry and a vibrant tourism economy, and this is a place, especially at our weddings, at our festivals, at our events, where cannabis is being consumed. It has been for a long time, and now we have legal cannabis sellers, legal cannabis growers, we have licensed products, we have insurance, we have ways to tax, we have ways to control, and so there is no excuse for us not to figure this out. This is an opportunity for us to be the first and only place in the country to figure out consumption and do it right. So we know that for all of us who are cultivators, especially those of us who are outdoor cultivators, agritourism is a huge draw, being able to bring people to our farms, see the cannabis, meet their grower, meet their producer, and make a sale on site. Coming through the retailers, coming eventually through direct sales, all things that we want to get to and where we think Vermont can differentiate itself. So without further ado, I want to bring up our first speaker from the Cannabis Retail Association of Vermont and representing one of our esteemed cannabis dispensaries, Colleen.
Hello, I just wanted to say this year the Cannabis Retail Association of Vermont is very excited to work and collaborate to make some significant changes in cannabis law. Specifically, we're focused this year on removing the caps from cannabis flower and concentrates, some common sense advertising reform, and to start on a path towards event permitting and consumption law changes. I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I'm really excited to have them work together in the future.
Wonderful, and thank you again to all of our retail partners for their organization. We also have a spotlight here for cultivators. We have got, no stranger to this building, Senator always in our hearts, John Rodgers, as well as Jane Lanza from Family Tree, who will speak to a few specific interests related especially to our rural economy.
Thank you, Eli. I was in the Senate Agricultural Committee this morning and just read this brief prelude to my list of concerns and improvements we could make. Before the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act passed by the U.S. Congress, cannabis was poised to become the first billion-dollar agricultural crop in the United States. At that time, the American Medical Association found out just a few days before the bill was poised to be passed, and they testified that it should not be passed because at that time, nearly 50% of the medicines that they used contained cannabinoids. My hope is that we will slowly move away from this highly regulated system into a system that is more like the agriculture that it is and that it used to be. One of the issues in the state of Vermont right now is when the legislature passed the bill, growers were only allowed to grow on one span number. And as any other type of agriculture, we should be allowed to use the property and the structures that are available to us. And so one of my asks was to allow more than one span. But the biggest issue in my mind right now, especially for the outdoor growers, is labor and being treated as agriculture. When we get to the point where we need to take the leaves off our plants, we're a Tier 4 mixed. We had over 1,200 plants. Each plant takes between 15 minutes and half an hour to defoliate. That's a serious amount of hours, and we have family, friends, and people who need work, who want to help us, but just for a few days and a few weekends, it's not really feasible for them to go through the whole background check and pay for that and then pay for their card. And so we would like our employees in the outdoor grow to be treated as any other agricultural product. I don't understand how a plant growing in dirt under the sun isn't agriculture. So that's my main objective, that family and friends can help us out as they have with all other types of agriculture throughout the history of Vermont. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity to share our unique perspective as a small family farm. We're Family Tree in Sheldon Springs, Vermont, a Tier 3 mixed-use license with a 90% focus on sun-grown outdoor agriculture, or cannabis, which I'll circle back to very soon. Vermont has, thank you, done an exceptional job enabling a true free market here, in that we have small producers compared to little or no other small producers in other legal markets. We firmly believe that cannabis does fit within the Vermont brand as far as outstanding farm-to-table craft potential for the state. While the Vermont brand generally consists of nuanced small producers, the Vermont craft beer or cheese industry just wouldn't be the same shaken down to 6 or 7 large ones. Our concern isn't with how many people are issued licenses in a free market, but what's actually happening with the supply and demand here. In October, the chair of the CCB, James Pepper, explained, quote, "Research shows about 1.3 to 2 grams of cannabis should be supplied for every 1 gram of demand," end quote. This up to 2 times oversupply versus demand to avoid interruptions in the retail chain leaves us wondering, where's all this cannabis going? Where is this oversupply? Is the expectation that it moves into the gray market, or that as producers we sit on it and allow it to go to waste? We believe healthy markets need diversity, competition, and not consolidation. Large producers can bear the burden of oversupply and inevitably could lead to a consolidation. We do see wholesale prices going down, but not necessarily retail or consumer prices yet. And it is often the small farmer here who is fitting that bill, the small producer. In other industries of agriculture, there are subsidies, price fixes, and controls in place to protect the longevity of these farmers and producers. We have 77 licensed distributors and hundreds of licensed makers as this market shakes itself out. We believe we can stimulate even more sales in this industry to help with this rampant oversupply by creating more retail opportunities. We'd like to see special event licenses, delivery, and a smaller retail tier option, such has been established within the manufacturing sector of this market, the Tier 1 and Tier 2. Along these lines, towns opting in is prohibitive. As it's set now, every town should be open for retail unless they opt out. As primarily sun-grown cannabis farmers, which has progressively been designated as agriculture here in Vermont, we would like to deeply advocate for the amendment of Bill H 612 that states a public building does not include a farm building that's used in the outdoor cultivation of cannabis, by a licensed pursuant. Sun-grown cannabis requires a climate-controlled building for air purification, drying, and curing. Though we farm independently year-round, it's nearly impossible for small producers such as ourselves to complete a harvest alone. As the law is written now, for us to bring more than 1 person on to help, public building is required. In the face of this supply and demand uncertainty, small producers are expected to invest even further with no assurance of a competitive market. If small cultivators such as ourselves and manufacturers such as ourselves could have a building designated for this farm use only, we could sustain a crew necessary to compete better. Being forced to have this commercial building, unlike other ag sectors, is a major setback. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Jane and John. And thank you. I'd like to recognize Lieutenant Governor David Zuckerman, who was here earlier and did have to leave, but a huge part of why we are here. And also another ally in the room, the Vermont Growers Association as well, and thank them for their work in the building. We are not just growers or retailers. Manufacturing is a huge part of this industry chain, and a lot of us wear more than one hat. We have some specialists in manufacturing who I would like to invite up, Grayson, Marissa, and Hope, who can talk a little bit more about some specific issues that are still facing the manufacturers in this state, and that we hope to amend in the very short term. So,
hello, my name is Grayson Glosser. I am the development director for Extract Vermont. We're a tier 3 manufacturer. My background is in synthetic chemistry and fabrication of thin film optoelectronic devices. I'm here to talk about two main things that we're facing as a tier 3 manufacturer in particular, but I think the second point will cover manufacturing in general. The first is a little more obscure. It has to do with the ban of butane and hexane in use with manufacturing cannabis products. For those who don't know, this was originally intended so individuals wouldn't make cannabis concentrates using these flammable solvents. Definitely a very good thing to have because most individuals don't have the training or the infrastructure in place to handle these kinds of hazards. However, in the medical bill, what was proposed was that dispensaries were allowed to handle these solvents because they were professional places. Now, unfortunately, this was not passed to the hemp legislature and subsequently to the cannabis statutes, so this is something that I think is important to pass on because as a tier 3 manufacturer, the only difference between a tier 2 and a tier 3 is that we're allowed to use solvents, and this seems somewhat unnecessary to have because if we're allowed to use solvents, we should be allowed to use all of them. There's no real risk that's posed to consumers because we're allowed, this is something that's already screened in safety and compliance testing, so it's a pretty easy one to knock out. The second one, and really the important one, has to do with concentrate and edible caps. This has caused a lot of controversy in the industry, and for good reason regarding purity and variety of products in the industry. I think that there's actually a much bigger and more important thing that's been omitted from public discussion, and I think it's really important that we bring it up. With potency, a lot of people do want more than 100 milligrams per package. Many people don't want to have to consume large quantities of edibles, which contain lots of sugar for personal health reasons. In a similar vein with the concentrate caps, this one kind of confused me because if you want a dose of a 90% concentrate, 2 puffs from a 60% concentrate would give you the same result just by milligrams of THC. So having that in place didn't really make sense to me, and if anything, the war on drugs showed us that the demand is going to be there no matter how harsh of legislation or punitive action that you write into law. And that's really the important thing, is that the illicit market is still alive and well. By some estimates, it's between 50 and 90% of the current market. The demand's not going to go away. So removing these caps is something that would allow consumers to find these in a legal way instead of having to go to the illicit market. In 2019, I believe Normal posted an article where Vermont was the 3rd highest per capita consumer of, or consumers were the 3rd highest per capita consumers of cannabis, behind Washington and Colorado, before there's any legal infrastructure put in place. So obviously we need to consider the impacts of higher dose and higher potency edibles and concentrates, but we also have to consider the effects of leaving the door closed on these, because all it's going to do is pose a really big public health risk to the people who want those products but aren't able to get them in the illicit, in the legal market, and have to go to the illicit market. So, I think that's something that everybody here stands behind, and everybody's here is really committed to making clean and safe cannabis. So, the way the bill is written right now has that like that, and I think we should keep it that way. So, thank you.
Excellent. Also to speak about manufacturing, the head of the Vermont Women in Cannabis, I'd like to welcome Marissa Dunn from Altitude Drops.
Hi. Vermont Women in Cannabis urgently appeals to the state legislature for enhanced support in addressing critical issues related to packaging and safety in the cannabis industry. Currently, women in this sector are facing significant challenges with the mandate of use of large, heavy boxes filled with glass jars for product delivery. This packaging is not only cumbersome, but also poses safety risks during transport, particularly in urban areas where lengthy walks from distant parking spots are common. The need for alternative, more manageable, and discreet packaging options is crucial for a safe and efficient operation of these businesses. Moreover, the prohibition on all forms of plastic packaging, including compostable and plant-based options, raises concerns, especially for edible cannabis products. In food industries, plastic is widely used for its benefits in preventing food safety and extending product shelf life. The lack of viable packaging alternatives in this cannabis industry has led to numerous drawbacks. Many products are not making it to market. Shelf life is significantly reduced by non-airtight options. The product costs are inflated, with packaging constituting sometimes over 12% of the total manufacturing cost of a product. While we do not want to promote the use of plastic, there is a real need for options that are still eco-friendly but allow the food safety as well. This is the reason we are not buying our ground meat in paper bags. Additionally, this restriction has resulted in the dependency on specific packaging suppliers, who often face shortages due to high demand from Vermonters and have increased their prices and minimum order quantities. This situation not only adds strains on an already overwhelmed manufacturer, but also hands our business to a select few in the industry that provide our packaging. There's evidence to suggest that the restrictive packaging requirements have led to lower sales of edibles in the Vermont market compared to other recreational markets, and may be driving Vermonters to purchase from neighboring states where similar products are available at lower costs due to more lenient packaging restrictions. We urge the legislation to reconsider these packaging rules to support the viability and competitiveness of Vermont's cannabis industry, particularly for women entrepreneurs who are disproportionately affected by these challenges. Implementing more practical packaging regulations will enhance safety, reduce cost, and ensure a more equitable and thriving market for all of us involved in this industry. Thank you.
Excellent. Also to speak into manufacturing concerns as well as medical issues. Medical is still a very, very important topic. We have one of the many folks here who wears multiple hats, Hope from Low-Key Alchemy. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for listening to us today from our concerns. My name is Hope Aguilera. I'm the owner of Low-Key Alchemy, a solventless Tier 2 manufacturer. I'm also a non-traditional medical patient, which means I don't hold a card for many reasons I'll talk about today. So we make solventless extracts rooted in traditional hash making that has been passed down from the Middle East and South Asia, sieving cannabis to create a natural and clean extract without any solvents. I first want to address our medical system that is failing patients. We actually have some amazing humans here today in this industry that have put together a care network that helps provide cannabis to cancer patients in need. These people are doing important work making up for the failures of the medical system, which was allowed to be dominated by out-of-state players. I'd also like to first thank the legislator and Vermont in general that fought for actual equity license here. As a minority-owned business without generational wealth, this market was actually accessible to us, so I really encourage you to expand that program, make it more impactful, especially after this country prohibited cannabis out of racist fury against Black and brown people. That Reefer Madness campaign that was used to justify the arrest, punishment, and harassment of people of color for generations, that still continues to this day. I want to address specifically Bill H. 0612 for various amendments to the medical program, as well as removing the concentrate caps, which were talked about, and adding, removing the public building requirement for agricultural farms. I fully support in this bill allowing patients to shop at retailers without the tax. However, in this bill, the tax burden is put on the retailer only to pay the tax on medical patients shopping at their store. I know working with our retailers that retailers are already struggling with 280E tax burden that they can't claim their employees' payroll costs. They can't claim many things that a lot of cannabis businesses can't claim because of the 280E tax burden. I believe that the state should cover it because of our failed medical program, that medical patients don't have access to consistent, clean cannabis products or enough retailers. I think they should really consider merging the medical and recreational program, especially because the recreational has way more oversight, regulation, and safety. Why don't medical dispensaries have required third-party testing is a question that I want to know. Most of us in Vermont are familiar with, the past, and those of us in the industry know for a fact that medical dispensaries have given moldy material to patients. How do we know that they're not continuing to do that and continuing to extract moldy material without mandated third-party testing? As patients, this is why we use solventless only for many reasons. People with medical issues can be more susceptible to mold, and about 25% of the population is highly sensitive to mold and not able to process mycotoxins out of their body. We need medical professionals in the medical system advising. We need a way to determine qualifying conditions that is not through legislator. We should not be adding conditions through legislator and having to go through this lengthy, messy process. And we should allow people with chronic pain, things that are for a lifetime, debilitating diseases, to not have to renew their medical card every 5 years. That is just another burden on them. Finally, I want to address the hope that we will lift the pointless cap on potency, on flower, and concentrates that no other legal state has. The concentrate cap has been an arbitrary fear-mongering campaign that large players in our state can easily mitigate with multiple tests, utilizing different labs. In addition to the fact that we self-test and there is no state-run lab checking products off of the shelf, only encouraging people to be dishonest with self-testing. We need safe, protected products, and there's no reason that we should have a cap on solid concentrates. It's only encouraging dishonesty and removing transparency from our market. We should just have unadulterated, unfiltered, without additive products that are just as they are on the market. In addition, I encourage and support the request for direct sale options. Vermont, as we know, is a huge farmers market state, and there's no reason that we cannot find a way to have a permit for a legal, licensed farmers market direct to consumer option for small businesses, especially in small makers that are overregulated and overtaxed with our necessary insurance, banking fees, in addition to a very burdensome 20% tax on retail products. I encourage you to consider lowering the excise tax that should potentially not be the same as Massachusetts, a very different economy than Vermont, and support local Vermonters so they can have access to affordable, tested, and clean products. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hope. Last and most importantly, I will say, Michelle and Troy, many of you folks know from Highly Rooted as well as the Vermont Cancer Care Network, here to speak on behalf of patients and some much needed reforms that will directly support their work. Thank you very much.
My name is Michelle Chapman. My husband and I hold 2 recreational cannabis licenses. However, we are not here today to speak about recreational cannabis. We are here to speak about medical cannabis. My husband and I are both medical patients in Vermont. We also work with other medical patients. We have a bit of an unusual business plan. Our whole purpose of owning our business is to provide free cannabis to cancer patients. And then we plan to open it up to veterans and other illnesses. We have already started this plan and currently help 113 patients as of 6 p.m. last night. However, our medical cannabis system is broken, which provides many obstacles for us doing this and for any patient to receive medical cannabis. We need to allow some retailers that are already in place that prove they can provide the quality and care medical patients deserve to sell medical cannabis. Vermont is far too spread out to have only 5 medical dispensaries. Someone going through chemo shouldn't have to drive an hour each way to get their medicine, or go without their caregiver for that time while they drive 2 hours to get it. After all, they are fighting for their lives. We also need to allow medical patients to shop at recreational retailers without paying the hefty tax. These patients might not be able to get all of the medical products they need, but they would at least not have to pay the tax on the products they can get when they can't go to a medical dispensary. We appreciate you giving us the time to speak today, and we hope everyone can see why these changes need to be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and to all our speakers. We've clearly got a lot of folks who are occupying a lot of different roles here, but we are a small state. We're very accessible, and we want to be successful working with our regulators. So thank you to our legislators, our officials, our regulators, our allies in the building, our representatives who made us happen, and all of you. We invite you to join us in the cafeteria for a community roundtable discussion talking about our next steps, action plans, updates, and how we can continue to evolve together. So thank you all for attending. Have a great day.